Another debut at this time is Rick Rude. This one is really pretty wild, Ted, that Rick Rude is in WCW at this time, and here's why. He actually appeared on both Raw and Nitro on the same night. Raw was pre-taped, and Rude appeared with a beard as a member of DX. Then he quit the company after what happened to Bret Hart in the Montreal Screwjob. He wasn't under contract. I think he was doing an appearance by appearance agreement. And so he just quit the company after the Montreal Screwjob, comes to WCW and shows up on Nitro. So as Raw is airing on USA, Rick Rude is there. And then on the other channel, TNT, Rick Rude is there too. But instead of having a beard, now he's got a mustache that he shaved it into. So it's, I mean, pretty crazy stuff, isn't it? Rick Rude is appearing on both programs on the same night.
Oh yeah, and I didn't know that happened either.
Well, Bischoff mentioned this on his podcast that during this period, Rick Rude came to him and asked him to pay back the Lloyd's of London insurance settlement that Rude had received so that Rude could step back into the ring. Apparently, Rude's career-ending injury wasn't plaguing him like it had been previously, and he felt like he was ready for an in-ring return. Bischoff refused to pay back the Lloyd's of London settlement, which came in at over like $400,000 or something like that. And so Rick Rude's ring return never came to fruition.
Yeah.
So Ted, I say all that to say we're going to return to something that you had mentioned earlier. Earlier in this podcast, you had said, well, maybe I should have hung around a little bit longer as a wrestler because all this crazy money and these huge contracts started happening here in like the mid to late 90s.
Yeah.
Well, the 12/29 edition of The Observer has this to say. Ted DiBiase is actually thinking seriously of making a comeback. DiBiase, who turns 44 next month, has been out of action a few years since suffering a serious neck injury while wrestling in Japan. He collected on a Lloyd's of London insurance policy, signing off that he would never be able to wrestle again. For him to wrestle, he'd have to pay Lloyd's a figure said to be around $462,000, and he's apparently strongly considering it. During his career, DiBiase was one of the best workers of his era. So, Ted, that's a pretty big report there from Meltzer and The Observer. How do you respond to that?
Well, Meltzer likes to make things sound great, but it was kind of like, it was what it was. It's like I never seriously considered. I mean, for me to actually come out of retirement, they would have had to pay that back, and if I'm going to do that, then if you really want me to wrestle that bad, then you won't mind, picking up the tab, paying back the insurance company and what have you. But the more I thought about it, it goes back to the thing with my dad. It's like 45 years old and he's gone.